Hello and welcome back to the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. Fresh from the success of their debut album, Led Zeppelin unleashed Whole Lotta Love onto the world. Little did they know, this experimental, almost chaotic journey would become a cornerstone of rock history. What began as a blues-inspired riff transformed into an explosive rock journey that would put the name Led Zeppelin onto every music fan's lips. With its iconic Jimmy Page riff, Robert Plant's primal vocals, and that infamous psychedelic middle section, Whole Lotta Love defied expectations and became a defining anthem of the bands. Joining me to discuss this song is my co-host and fellow massive Led Zeppelin fan, Mr. Felipe Amarim. How you doing, bro?
Doing great, man. And you?
Good, yeah, not bad, thank you. It's a lovely day here where I am. Sun's shining. It's been like this all week. It's been blue skies and lovely sun, which must be, it's lovely for me here in the countryside. It must be lovely for you down in Richmond.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's great here, man. And it doesn't feel like the UK, does it?
No.
It's not what I signed up for.
I wanted the rain, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Led Zeppelin and Whole Lotta Love, one of our favourite bands together from personally my favourite Led Zepp album. The opening song and the song that, if probably, maybe apart from Stairway to Heaven, everyone associates with Led Zeppelin. When you hear Zeppelin,
it was their
you think
biggest,
Stairway to Heaven and Whole Lotta Love.
Yeah, biggest hit in America, wasn't it? I think.
Yes, yeah, reached number
Made
4.
it to I think number 4. I don't know.
Did, yeah.
Because they were not a singles band. That's what is interesting about them. They kind of refused to release singles. They were forced to at some point to release singles, but they always wanted the albums to be the main thing on the single, because I understand why, because I think they are an albums band, really.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And also a live band, and just one song being promoted detached from the album, it doesn't show how great they are as a band, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Well, before we crack on, a few little terms and conditions that we ask of you, the listener and viewer. If you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon, do us a favor, scroll down, hit the 5 stars, give us a little sentence what you think of the show, and it helps us because we'd be seen by more people on the apps. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to hit like and subscribe so you stay up to date with our new content. So just kicking off with a few of the song details. So the song and the single was released on the 7th of November, 1969. The actual song was recorded between the 14th and 19th of April and the 28th and 30th of April in 1969 as well. Shared between the Olympic Studios in London and the A&M Studios in Hollywood. Is, I think, quite obviously a hard rock song is the genre, clocking in at just over 5.5 minutes, which is an interesting thing for a single. It was released on the Atlantic label. The songwriters were Led Zeppelin, plus Willie Dixon, which we'll get to in a second. And it was produced by Jimmy Page, Eddie Kramer, and the B-side to the single was Livin' Lovin' Made. So without further ado, shall we go on? And you want to first talk about the controversy surrounding the song. So let's get this out of the way. Let's talk about the controversy. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, or the Willie Dixon in the room, should we say. Felipe, kick us off.
Yeah, so the song is clearly based, or admittedly based on You Need Love by Willie Dixon, which was recorded by Muddy Waters. So he had all those blues guys back in the day when they got their first contracts with labels. They were recording each other's songs. And I don't think there's a Willie Dixon recording of this song.
I looked for it and I couldn't see one.
Yeah. No. Muddy Waters made it famous. The song was called You Need Love. And what Led Zeppelin nicked from the song, and I'm using Robert Plant's words, he said he nicked the lyrics. And he said it was happily paid for.
Let me pause you for 1 second just to tell the listeners and viewers that below in the show notes and description is a Spotify playlist that is dedicated to this episode. And we do this with all the episodes we do. If we're talking about an album, the playlist will have the full album in and any other songs we mention. Today's episode, it's got the song Whole Lotta Love in and a few others that we're going to mention, including some covers and the original ones as well by Small Faces and Muddy Waters. So yeah, please carry on.
Yeah, so the song is called You Need Love, the original one. And the first Led Zeppelin album includes a lot of blues songs, blues classics, and some Willie Dixon stuff. So there's I think what they got wrong, like big time, is not knowing where to draw the line. What is inspiration? What is a version of someone else's work?
Yeah.
No, plagiarism for me is when you don't give the credit. And that's where I believe they got it wrong. Like, if you listen to classic, like rock and roll, like Chuck Berry, like Fats Domino, and if you listen to early blues music, it's kind of really hard to draw that line. Okay, I'm not justifying nicking someone's music, because that's not the best way of coming up with a hit song.
Yeah.
Although in music we know that riffs and drum beats and lyrics, people tend to get inspired by other people and sometimes nick entire sections of songs or lyrics or melodies.
Yep.
The thing is, it's harder to draw that line with blues music, like early blues music, because everything is way too similar in a way. And I'm not saying a bad way, because there's loads of similarities with the subjects that the lyrics are approaching, the sort of riffs and beats that people are coming up with. But now when Led Zeppelin came about, you had this like huge thing in the UK, which is like British bands doing their version of the blues. And Robert Plant once said that Led Zeppelin's style or genre would be contemporary blues. And I think that is great. It's not rock, it's a version of blues, it's heavy blues. But that's how they started. You can say that about the first album and first two albums. Then they went more into folk and used other influences, and it changed a lot their sound. But there's a lot of the blues stuff in the beginning, and I believe Jimmy Page said once that he was writing the riffs, and he told Plant to write lyrics for the songs, and he would sing someone else's lyrics, say, no, I'm going to write something after, don't worry about it. Before the recording, I'm going to come up with my own lyrics. And very often he wouldn't. And he just ended up like recording someone else's phrases. Yeah. Now, you can quote one verse from someone, one line, one,
phrase, maybe.
Yeah, one phrase, you can say that. But like, there's entire sections there, like "You Need Cooling," like that. And when he says, "Woman, you need love," is the same sort of melody and vibe and expression. It's not the those words could have been used in a different way, and he wouldn't notice the similarity. But the main melody is pretty much the same.
Yeah, and even some of the specific ways he comments. So like when he says "way down inside," you can hear that on the Small Faces version, and the Muddy Waters version. Just the way
the Small Faces version now, that's an interesting thing. I don't think they credited Willie Dixon
either. Ooh,
I think they take it as because it's "You Need Loving."
Right.
Even the title is slightly different.
Check that. Let's see if they credited it.
And so I recommend everyone to listen to the there's no Willie Dixon version of it as far as I'm concerned. Listen to the Muddy Waters version, with I think was recorded. It was at Chess Records, wasn't it? The label back in the day. And Ronnie Lane is a singer from Small Faces. His vocal interpretation is for sure where Plant took the idea from. They even have a stop, and he says like, "Woman, you need love," the exact same sort of a thing that happens with Led Zeppelin, and the high-pitched vocals, which is not common in blues music, but it's a hard rock thing, and the Small Faces were doing that kind of stuff. So I think Plant and Page used to go to their gigs, so that's the thing. They saw them playing that song live. See, that explains a lot. So I'm saying all of this, and I say,
Can I just tell you quickly that the Small Faces, Willie Dixon didn't sue them because he didn't know that this cover existed, whereas Zeppelin's went so much bigger than their one.
Exactly, Zeppelin's version of it was so famous that
on later releases of Small Faces stuff, Dixon was credited. So maybe after. So what happened, for those who don't know, is that Willie Dixon sued Led Zeppelin in 1985. Led Zeppelin paid out, settled, and said, "That's fine, but we're going to credit you on all the recordings going forward." I wonder if Small Faces were like, "Holy shit, I don't want Willie Dixon suing us. Let's just credit him in these subsequent releases."
Yeah, exactly. So basically, he got some money out of the song after. I think that was a bit too late. That's what I say. Like, here's a way I draw the line. I want to know your opinion on this, Lars.
Okay.
When you have people sampling stuff nowadays, right? Everyone is sampling. They take a drum beat out of a James Brown song and they come up with a drum and bass thing or hip hop so. It's really difficult in music to do something that's 100% original, which doesn't justify you just going and copying everything out of someone else's music.
Yeah.
So when you take small chunks of a song and turn into something else. Nowadays, it's much easier to do with technology. We just call it sampling.
Mm-hmm.
But then you need to credit people and you pay for it.
Yeah.
So that's where I draw the line. My opinion, not that my opinion is relevant in this case at all, because I think Willie Dixon made a lot of money out of this, and his family made a lot of money out of this, as a consequence of the success of Whole Lotta Love. So, and also a lot of people know him because of this song now. So if it wasn't Whole Lotta Love, a lot of people wouldn't know who Willie Dixon is. And I think it matters for him financially that he got the result he wanted by being credited as a songwriter. So let's put it like this: copying like this was the early stages of sampling. So it's like, okay, I like this, I'm going to put this in my song. Now,
are you talking technically? Because are you talking generically? Because technically you're wrong. Sampling is taking the specific thing. So yeah. I'm just Googling Cypress Hill. I never thought on this podcast I'd put a Cypress Hill song in the playlist, but it's going to happen today. Cypress Hill have a song called Hits from the Bong, where it takes Dusty Springfield's Son of a Preacher Man intro little music part and they sample that. So that's taking it like for like. And that James Brown drummer stuff, that also went like for like, where they took the drums. So I mean, if you're unless you don't actually mean sampling.
No. That's not what I mean. What I'm saying is what I would call what sampling was back in the day, when you couldn't just extract a whole track out of a song and then record something on top of it. So I'm going to learn that part, I'm going to play or sing that part just like the original and do something else around it and then create something from it. Now the problem is, and that's my opinion on this is the only thing that I find 100% wrong is to not give the credit from the beginning, because I think they thought they could get away with it. And I'm talking about my favorite band, guys, so I'm not having a go at Led Zeppelin. I'm just saying, like, they could have just said from the beginning, we took that Willie Dixon song and we took the melody and parts of the lyrics and we used our own riff and beat and that stuff, and we created this piece. This piece is based on You Need Love, but it's called Whole Lotta Love. And if you do that and you give the credit from day one, that I believe that's totally fine.
I'm in agreement with you.
That. Yeah. That's what the problem. So in 1985, Willie Dixon realized, well, you know what, I want a little share of the profits because I deserve. And I think they actually settled out of the court.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, he got credits and a certain sum of money that we would never know. Probably a lot.
Yeah. So the thing is, I'm looking at Led Zeppelin 1, the album and the track listing, and I'm seeing now, Anne Bredon is credited with Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, Willie Dixon with You Shook Me, Willie Dixon with I Can't Quit You, Baby. So now we see that they're credited. But I wonder how it was in the first
Can't Quit You, Baby, I think that was credited from the beginning. They never claimed that they wrote the song. How Many More Times?
Yeah,
it's based on a song called How Many More Years?
Yeah, so by Howlin' Wolf, isn't it?
Yeah, that one is not there.
And even now they haven't credited him. So yeah.
Exactly.
But we'll see. One thing I did want to say is that I don't know. I feel like that in this day and age, there's such a seriousness around ownership, and maybe this began in the 80s when Willie Dixon did this. But I've mentioned this before, and do you know what? I reckon I mentioned this all the way back in episode 2 when we did Led Zeppelin 2, which was one of the first episodes we ever did. In classical music, all the way back in the 1500s, 1800s, all of this stuff, you'd often have sections where there would be a whole little melody, a few bars that was taken, an exact melody. So, Beethoven might have taken the exact melody that Mozart put in this symphony, and he just put it in for like 4 bars. And back then, especially when I was studying classical music, we used the term, I've forgotten the term. Quoting, that's it. Yeah, he's quoted Mozart here. And, and the other, when I'm writing essays about it, you say, and in bar 73, Mozart pays homage to Beethoven with this little thing, because it's almost like a sign of respect back then.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, Mozart wrote this incredible melody for this symphony. And I'm assuming
but
Beethoven said, "Wow, that's really cool. I want to say it in there," and he's
yeah.
quoting it. And I love that idea that I'm quoting it. But again, there has to be a scale of what's quoting, what's copying. Is there a middle ground?
I think let's face it. The whole problem surrounding those things is called money, right? So if you write a song that makes no money, you make no profits out of your song, and I copy your song and I make no profits out of it, no one no one gives a flying fuck.
Yeah.
So that's the truth about it.
And that goes even further to what you're saying, because back in the day, people think it opened my eyes when I was wondering, actually, hold on. After I'd studied classical music, I was like, hold on. Who's paying Beethoven and Mozart? How do they get paid? They must
were
get
commissioned
well.
by the church,
they were commissioned
or by some
by
rich
people to make monies for their dances, for their parties, for their exquisite balls. They were paid by them, so it was literally a job. Beethoven was asked, "Listen, Beethoven, we need a 10-minute piece for this dance we're having on Saturday." I'm sure you'd have more time than that. And Beethoven was like, "Cool, right, music done. Give him a paycheck." So he wouldn't have cared. I'm assuming he wouldn't have cared that 10 years later Mozart used the same little thing, same little phrase in one of his pieces.
Yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, that's the thing. I think that they wouldn't think like that, because we're talking about hundreds of years ago now. The music industry theoretically has an organized way of managing the money. Which we know is not really like that. But yeah, so my point is, because the Zeppelin version of it made a lot of money for them, then yes, so that there's a lawsuit because there's money involved. If there's no money, no one cares. So my point is, if there is money, you should give it to everyone who helped that song to exist, because the sound engineer gets a share, and the producer. And if it's based on someone else's music, that's my only issue with what Led Zeppelin did by, you can call it stealing or borrowing or, getting quoting inspiration from the blues. And I think they did all of that, different levels of that. The thing is, if you give credit, it's all fine. At some points, they didn't. That's where I think they got it wrong. Agreed. Now, let's talk about what is the fact here. Is Whole Lotta Love a great song, or is it not?
It is. Yeah,
regardless of where it came from.
I was just going to round off that section and say that's that part done. It's all settled now. Led Zeppelin paid Willie Dixon. He obviously they settled, which means he agreed that it was a good enough figure for him to let go of it. Done, dusted. Now let's talk about how great of a rock song this is. What do you want to go first, man? I mean, there's so much we could talk about.
So what makes it original? Just departing from the previous topic, what is it about this song that is completely original, or the most original thing about it? I think first of all is the guitar riff, and the effects. I think that makes it. It's like, also, it's not blues in a way. It doesn't swing like blues music. It's more straight. So it's more like a funky, heavy funk kind of beat than the blues song. So if you compare to all the other versions, they kind of a swung kind of vibe, which is the blues and jazz stuff. Now, this is straight, and the riff is relentless. It's just there all the time, never stops. And I think it's a simple riff, a few notes, and just loops itself for the whole song apart from the chorus. And it's like. It's basically a one-chord song, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you've touched on it already. The structure of the song is very different to what we expected from rock music. If you look at what the Beatles laid down in the 60s, it was very much chorus, or a chorus intro, verse, chorus, middle eight, solo, outro, or chorus before outro. And for this to be a lead single, 5.5 minutes long, from probably their most anticipated album, because after number one, people were like, well, what the hell's coming after this? And I know that, 3 by no means was a letdown, but it was very different. It was folky. It was a bit of a departure from the blues and the rocky stuff. And 4, I mean, we know about that album. The fact that this was the lead single chosen, and it's 5.5 minutes, and it doesn't have a chorus or a verse-chorus structure, just that one riff over and over, is quite telling that this was a unique song, even from the outset.
Yeah, and it said like it doesn't have a chorus. It's like the chorus comes as a natural progression from it's just one structure. It gets into the chorus without having any progression that leads to the chorus.
It's only the
so
chorus
there is
lyrically.
a chorus, but it's like the verse is like that's something that happens in blues music. Verse and chorus is one long thing.
Yeah,
you don't have that division,
which shows the blues impact, the blues influence on the song.
But in terms of structure, what I like the most about it is that experimental middle section, because it's I play in a Zeppelin tribute band, and it's a lot of fun to play this one. But you need to come up with something for the middle section, because that can only be that original one can't be reproduced by anyone. It's just a mess of studio effects and guitar effects and vocals and everything. So, but the way they get into that part from is quite shocking, because the song goes straight. It's a punch in your face from the beginning. Heavy riff. Robert Plant starts shouting the lyrics from the beginning. It gets into the chorus really quickly, and the drums join the band for the chorus, and then and the groove carries on from that. Then it's like it's a car crash after that, in a way. They finish the first chorus chaotic. And it all collapses, and it's like, guys, where are you going here? And it's just beautiful in a way, because they just delivered their best chorus so far.
Yeah.
And they stop. And they stop and they go on and on making noise. Let's put it like that. Making noise for a couple of minutes until they come back for a guitar solo, which is absolutely brilliant. And then they carry on with the song. It's just it's very unpredictable in terms of structure.
Really but even the middle section, I think the word I used in the intro was chaotic, and it is because it's filled with everything. I mean, it really does. It was an early example of how to fit that psychedelic experimentation into hard rock. Now, we've seen Pink Floyd and the Doors do it sort of earlier, Hendrix as well, in lead up to the 70s. But to hear that was rock music, and there is a difference between hard rock and rock, and I don't want to go into the specifics of it now, but this is a much harder rock song. Going off on a little tangent, this song, arguably, the way that the bass and the guitar do their jobs is a precursor to heavy metal.
Oh yeah,
because you don't have the bass guitar grooving and playing root notes only. The riff, there's a thing that John Paul Jones does where he plays two notes at the same time, which is called a double stop, and that was very unusual. But he does it to do
power chord, isn't it?
Almost, power chord. Yeah. Technically, no, but it has that effect of giving it more power. Yeah. And that was unusual for a bass guitar leading into heavy metal and hard rock, like Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, Budgie, Uriah Heep. This song and the way Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones approached the riff playing of it was quite significant. And because of that, hearing such heavy music coupled with also quite a bit of psychedelia. And I mean, what effects have we got here? We've got swirling, panning, where it goes. I remember listening to it for the first time. My dad said to me, put this album on. And he moved. We were in the house and he moved the speakers. And he was like, right, put one there and one there. And I'm sat there like, what the hell's going on? I don't know how old I would have been, maybe 10 or something. And I'm listening. He goes, right, close your eyes and hit play. And he hit play. And I remember getting to that middle part and the vocals going, and I'm going round. I'm like, whoa, what the hell's happening? And it was just incredible. And what else? The delay. Jimmy Page and Kramer used tape delay, lots of reverb, backwards echo, and panning to achieve this mystical psychedelic experience within the middle of this song. And it was just nuts, wasn't it? And it goes on for longer than you think, but because there's things changing and happening. Man, do you know what the one thing I never remembered about the song until today? The bloody percussion solo in it.
Yeah.
Incredible. It's that John Bonham, I imagine, right?
Yeah.
Of course it is, yeah.
I think it's him,
John Bonham just playing this little conga solo, this little conga rhythm.
There's a beat, yeah.
All in the background.
Is the only thing with some sort of structure during that section, because that's a beat.
The congas,
and it's kind of a loop.
Yeah.
And then everything else is going on top of that. And I think he keeps the hi-hat with the left foot as well going for a bit. Yeah. So there's some element of rhythm, some element of groove, but it's mostly, as I said, chaotic. And Jimmy Page, I'm gonna use the exact words here. Jimmy Page said those were evil sounds you're not supposed to hear on commercial radio. It's quite evil, isn't it?
And then, but then you wonder, 1 year later, Black Sabbath come out with the song Black Sabbath. And you think, well, if Jimmy Page said this is evil, or Ozzy and Geezer and Tony are sat there saying, sorry, Bill as well, they're all sat there going, well, hold on, this is a bit evil, but we can make it way more. And you start heavy metal, you know.
I
Boom.
think, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's an element of heavy metal there for sure. I think the fact that he's saying it wasn't made for commercial radio and still was their biggest hit. So there is a radio cut. I think it's like 3 minutes long.
Yes.
I think they just chopped that part. The
middle section.
Yeah, the middle section.
No good though, is it?
Well, there's another part where they stop, but then it goes straight into the vocals. So I think they chopped just that one, just the big instrumental or experimental section in the middle.
Again, I hate radio edits. I hate radio edits.
Yeah, I think it's just why would you do that?
Yeah,
because people are not prepared for anything that's longer than 3 minutes. Well,
don't listen. Go listen to your pop music.
Yeah, exactly. Listen to something else. Listen to whatever pop radio music you want to listen to.
Yeah.
But yeah. So there is a radio edit. Also, the other thing that made the song really popular was to be as the opening theme for Top of the Pops for 11 years.
Wow.
So that's a long run. Yeah. So it's funny. The band that's probably like the least pop you can think of, like there is a proper hard rock band, the heaviest you could be at the time.
Yeah.
And they are literally providing the music for Top of the Pops.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I mean, I'll just to tick off one of our categories, I will just finish off with my pioneering hard rock and heavy metal thing by saying that, on top of what I said about the riff, you've got heavy distortion in the guitar, very heavy, the aggressive drumming as well. And for me, that ties off wonderfully this pioneering, showing what hard rock could become and what heavy metal would become, and Led Zeppelin did it with a blues inspired song. Anyway, why don't we segue nicely from aggressive drumming into, you want to talk about John Bonham?
Yeah, I got to talk about him, isn't it? I have to. I'm such a drummer, I know. But the thing is, with the drum beat, there's another thing that should technically make it less commercial, and I don't know how it works.
Okay.
Normally, you have the backbeat in any rock or pop song or even heavy metal. You have the second and the fourth beats of the bar. Kind of standing out compared to everything else. Is where you're supposed to clap your hands, although some people don't. So the snare drum that normally plays on 2 and 4 is playing on 2 and the second half of beat 4. So he displaces the second backbeat by half a beat, which creates a kind of an effect of like being behind the beat or playing a bit slower. That's how I feel it.
Do you think that makes it groovier? Well, what do you think that does?
I think it does because it actually follows the accents on the guitar. So that's the thing. Whilst normally you have a drummer playing one consistent beat, there's really solid, really predictable. So the guitar player can play the riff on top of it, and the riff can have a different accent and take the song into a different direction. But what John Bonham was doing, he was just like John Paul Jones was doing this on the bass. He was following the guitar accents like one by one with the drum beat, which is we've not seen the usual way of drumming, isn't it?
We've seen him do it throughout the Zeppelin career. In Kashmir, when I learned about that 3/4, Page is playing in 3/4 and he's playing in 4/4.
Yeah, Kashmir is playing 4/4 and Page is playing 3/4.
Which means every 4 bars they're wrong. They're wrong. They're out of each other, and every 4 bars they come together on the one.
They come together,
and it's just fantastic. So he's got that clever. He's got that clever drumming instinct, doesn't he, to follow the guitar and the phrase, not the bar. That's what makes a good musician, man. You don't look at the bar of music and like, right, I need to nail this. You look at the phrase and say, okay, this might not line up through here, but when I hit beat 1 of bar 5, we're going to come together.
Well, but that's the thing, though. When you think about Kashmir, it's almost like it sounds like he's ignoring the guitar part completely, but then they come together eventually. Exactly. In Whole Lotta Love, he is just following every single hit of the guitar.
Yeah.
So if there's a delayed accent on the 4th beat, that's what he plays on the snare. It's exactly what he does. So, right, I've seen a lot of people playing that, and it's really hard to capture the vibe, because what it does, it doesn't only play those, and the snare drum for me is the biggest thing about this groove.
Yeah.
It doesn't only play the backbeat and the displaced backbeat. There's like loads of ghost notes, which is like quieter notes played on the snare drum in between all the strong ones.
Yeah.
So if you listen to isolated drum track, then you can kind of hear what I'm talking about. If you're not a drummer or you're not a musician, the only way to perceive those notes is if you remove them. You don't listen, you can't hear them pretty much when they're there. But if someone plays that groove without the ghost notes, you're like, well, something is missing.
Yeah.
So that's the amount of detail that Bonham would put into a groove. It's the kind of stuff you can barely hear, but overall makes a huge difference.
Genius.
So I think so. There's John Paul Jones had this point about John Bonham not being just the heavy hitter that everyone thought he was. So, he was just a guy smashing the drums. He said, no, there was a lot of finesse in his playing, a lot of quieter parts playing at the same time as the loud parts. So like that's like internal dynamics. It's not like going loud and quiet. It's being loud and quiet at the same time. So you have like kick and hi-hat playing really loud, and you have some really quiet notes on the snare in between those notes. So he had, that sense of dynamics really well developed. And it was, I think in that sense, out of all the heavy drummers out there, he was for sure the one who had more, how can I put this? He was the one.
That was maybe finesse is the right word.
Yeah, finesse is the word. He had more finesse than most of the heavy drummers out there. And I don't think, although he gets a lot of credit for being one of the best drummers of all time, still I think people don't realize this element of his playing up to this day. So I think the drum beat is for sure one of the main things in the song. You've mentioned the bass, and that's the other
well,
thing.
so we've spoken about guitar, bass, and drums.
Yeah.
That we got to talk about Robert Plant now and his vocals, which were, I mean, daring, that's a good word, provocative, sexual,
pornographic,
controversial, maybe. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, all you got to do is listen to the song and you can hear it. There is a raw sexual energy to it with all this moaning and this, I think that's all you can call it, really, this moaning, this sexual moaning. And again, for a song that became so successful at the end of the 60s to have such a daring vocal line, or not, let's not say the vocal line, the vocal sounds within the middle section. I can just imagine a sketch where someone, the Whole Lot of Love comes on, it's 1969, comes on the radio for the first time, and like there's a man reading the newspaper and the song comes on and he's like, what on earth's this? And then there's a kid eating dinner at the table and the mum drops the plate and she covers the kid's ears. It's like, you can just imagine that it's like kind of like that. You kind of sat there going, what is this? Obviously nowadays with all the variety of music, it doesn't sound so out of place, but for the end of 60s, man, quite unusual.
It's when people started to kind of challenge the establishment in that way. If we want to sing like this, we will. If we want to talk about this subject, we will. I think that's again, rock and roll, musical freedom, isn't it? We want to, people wanted to express themselves in any way, which I find really interesting because, as I said, one thing that immediately sets Robert Plant apart from the blues, which is his roots, it's the high-pitched vocals, right? You have a lot of like raw, aggressive vocals in blues music, but he had such a range that like no one had. So that's interesting. But the fact he's moaning and doing all that kind of stuff is such a contrast with his personality at the time, because he was quite shy.
I was literally just going to say that, because whenever I think of Robert Plant, I think if Robert Plant had been if he had looked like one of those glam metal guys, in terms of the outrageous energy, singing about having sex with your teacher, music videos that were outrageous, then I think you kind of look at this song a bit differently. But whenever I think of Robert Plant and I think of all this sexual stuff he does, I think of the photo of him playing that gig with the dove that flew onto his hand, because that is one of my favorite photos in rock history. If I'm not mistaken, that was complete accident. Like the dove just flew onto his hand. but it's just such a peaceful photo of such a peaceful man who just had an expressive voice. There's nothing wrong or outrageous or explicit in what Robert Plant is trying to do in this song. He's not trying to say, listen, guys, go and have a lot of sex. This is what we want in rock and roll. It's just his expression.
I think, and maybe because when you look at his like stage persona in the early days of Zeppelin, he was not the guy you see on The Song Remains the Same. He was like not moving around on stage too much, maybe not looking into the eyes of a person in the audience. It's like, I don't think he had that self-confidence, and he knew he was surrounded by some of the best musicians in the scene. So, and he needed to be that, like, imagine having to be the frontman of a band that has three of the best instrumentalists of your time, and you're like, well, can I deliver? So you're the frontman. You're not only a member of the band, you're the one talking to the audience. You're the one right there in front of everyone. Exactly. So I think he didn't have that self-confidence at the time. Probably developed that later, because you can see his attitude on stage changed a lot, and is much more relaxed, a few years after, maybe as a consequence of this song or the album itself. I think he expressed himself so in such a free way in this song. Like it's so, I mean, you can smell the freedom when he's singing. It's just like, I'm going to sing in any way I want. And I think maybe that's one of the things that helped him to reach another level of live performance. And I think this song contains the best of his abilities as a singer. The improvisational character of his vocals, the aggressive vocals and expression. It's all there. I mean, I think it's one of his best tracks as a singer.
Yeah, I agree.
Quite early in his career, which is impressive.
Anything else?
No, man, that's we're done. Again, it's one of those things we could talk about the song all day.
Let's talk about the accolades and what it did for them. So it was Zeppelin's, their debut album was successful, but then to follow it up with this song, this became their breakthrough worldwide. It hit number 4 in the US and really did cement their status as up-and-coming rock stars. It is one of the most famous rock songs ever, so I'm just going to quickly fly through all of where it sits in these charts. So Spin's 100 Greatest Songs, it's number 39. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it's one of the 500 songs that shaped rock and roll. Classic Rock, 10 of the best songs ever, it was number 30. That doesn't make sense. Maybe there was Anyway, Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Songs of All Time is number 75. Q's 100 Greatest Guitar Tracks Ever, number 3. Rolling Stone's 100 Greatest Guitar Songs of All Time, number 11. VH1's Greatest Hard Rock Songs of All Time, number 3. Radio 2's Top 100 Greatest Guitar Riffs, it came number 1. And Rolling Stone's, the revised 500 Greatest Songs of All Time, it moved down to 128, but it is there. Every greatest rock song list, every greatest guitar riff list, it's there, and that's a testament how significant it is as a rock song, isn't it?
Yeah, and the fact is that's one of the riffs and one of the songs that changed the direction of rock music altogether. As I said,
psychedelia, heavy metal, hard rock, guitar riffs, drumming, did everything.
It's funky, it's heavy, it's sexy, it's intense. It's got everything. So basically, this song is about emotion, like all sorts of emotions. It's just beautiful. Also, I recommend everyone to listen to Tina Turner's version of this song, which I didn't know until this morning. And believe me or not, and it is such a great version of it. Funky, as funky as Tina can get. She's the only one who can do that sort of a funk interpretation of a rock song, and still make it sound as good, in my opinion, as good as the original. But have a listen to that one as well.
All of those tracks are in the playlist below, which you can find in the show notes. But thank you for joining us for another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. We hope you join us. Again, if you're listening on Apple and Spotify and Amazon, go down, give us a little review, and it does us the world of good. It takes 20 seconds of your time, but it means the world to us. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe to stay up to date with all of our content.
Yeah, thanks for being with us once again. Thanks for listening to the podcast. We really appreciate you guys, sharing and listening and commenting and interacting with us. Yeah, thank you very much. Keep on rocking, everyone, and don't do anything I wouldn't do.
As usual, guys, take care and long live rock and roll.